Okay, hello. This is a practice for a review of the Bush administration's Iraq invasion war manipulation to get U.S. public and congressional support for the war. All right. So before we start, we'll cover a little background here. After the first Gulf War, there were 7 years of WMD inspections between 1991 and 98. And during this time, the USA undermined and sabotaged the inspection efforts. The U.S. played dirty games with WMD inspections, including using as pretext for bombing on religious holidays, pretext for bombing the Iraq Special Republican Guard headquarters to get a coup, to initiate a coup, and then gathering intelligence for assassination attempts while inspecting Saddam's palaces, the presidential palaces. Okay, and then the United States lied about evidence to manufacture within the public the false perception that Saddam had WMD and was concealing it, right? Where they had none since 1991. All right, so we're going to go through exactly how they conducted this manipulation, and as a quick review, we'll just start with this overall, I guess, flow chart or time chart, right? And it starts off at 9/11, and then you have the 1 year anniversary of 9/11, and you have the November election in 2002. All right. So whenever you see P, that stands for plan to use the Al Qaeda attack to attack Iraq. All right. Iraq didn't do it. Al Qaeda did it, but you can use that attack to justify an attack upon Iraq. All right. And it's basically transfer of fear. That's all it is. Um, and then F stands for jacking up fear in a big fear campaign. All right. You see how they're all stacked together here. And R stands for the push to get a congressional resolution. And the resolution, although it appears benign, harmless, is really a hot little ticket to war. It authorized the president to use military force, and that in the past, in the Spanish American War and the Vietnam War, has been used to kick off a war. All right, so third time, I say third time it's been used this time. All right, so on 9/11, according to Richard Clark here in his book, he testified saying that Rumsfeld and Wolfowitz on day one were pushing to use this tragedy, national tragedy, conducted by Al Qaeda to push their agenda against Iraq. Then the very next day, there's Rumsfeld, there's Wolfowitz. Bush is pushing it. There's Bush, right? He's pushing to connect Iraq with the 9/11 attacks. All right. And these P here plans, this is General Wesley Clark. We'll talk about this here. He visited the Pentagon again here. We'll talk about that. I'll skip that for now. And now the key plan was to time the big push to get this resolution with the 1 year anniversary of 9/11 because you'd have reactivated all the memories and the fear and the horror and terror of that day. All right, build up a lot of emotion, then you dump that upon Iraq. All right, and you build it up even further. Jacking up fear with WMD. Nuclear weapons. Saddam's going to have a nuclear weapon. It's going to make 9/11 look like peanuts, like nothing. All right, he's going to use chemical weapons to whack whole populations in America. All right, so it's really jacking up fear. And then you time that with, so that's timed with 9/11, and you also introduce the resolution and how the resolution is going to keep us safe. So amidst all this fear, this is the thing that's going to keep us safe. All right. And then the Bush administration pushed to get the vote for the resolution right before the congressional recess. Right. And this is when our representatives leave Washington, go back home to their constituent populations, and campaign for the last 3 weeks before the election. All right. So the idea is, with this fear, this toxic atmosphere of fear, right? If you vote against this, you hate America. You don't care about the safety of Americans, right? You're a terrorist lover. You're un-American. You're anti-patriotic or whatever, right? Your opponent can just eat you alive, right? So this creates the pressure to vote for this, right? And now the resolution is a full. It's not a declaration of war, but it's essentially the same as a declaration of war. There's only a few differences, which are essentially minor. All right. So now this wasn't just an accident. The Bush administration, 4 days before the anniversary of 9/11, bragged that they have a meticulously planned strategy to persuade the public, the Congress, and the allies of the need to confront the threat of Saddam Hussein. In the end, it'll be difficult for someone to vote against the resolution. And that's what this is all set up here for. They timed all this to create leverage to make it difficult to vote against this resolution. Or, right, you're out on the street. It's arm twisting. All right, so let's look at the details of what they did, right? Okay, let's see here. So on 9/11, you had the terrorist attack, the Twin Towers, the Pentagon, and there was a third attempt which went down in Pennsylvania, probably attempt on the capital of our nation's capital building. All right, and I say, why these targets? Well, they're all symbols of economic power, military power, and symbols of U.S. political power, right? And then on 9/11, same day, Rumsfeld and Wolfowitz pushed to pin this on Iraq when they know it is Al Qaeda. And this comes from excerpts from Richard Clarke's book, Against All Enemies. Here's Richard Clarke. He was a top U.S. anti-terrorist leader and expert at the time, anti-terror czar during the Clinton administration and then during the Bush administration, and he resigned when they invaded Iraq. All right. Now, at the time of 9/11, Richard Clarke was a U.S. Anti-terrorism czar, the top U.S. Terrorist expert, coordinating the anti-terror efforts of all U.S. intelligence agencies, CIA, FBI, NSA, DIA, all the main ones. He was at the center of White House discussions and decision-making at the time of 9/11. He said this. This is how he recounts it in his book. Quote, "Then I realized with almost a sharp physical pain that Rumsfeld and Wolfowitz were going to try to take advantage of this national tragedy to promote their agenda about Iraq." Then on 9/12, very next day, Bush asked Clarke if there was any connection between Iraq and Al Qaeda. Clarke said no. Bush told him to look again. Clarke said, quote, "Absolutely, we'll look again. I was trying to be more respectful, more responsive. But we have looked several times for state sponsorship of Al Qaeda and not found any real linkage to Iraq. Iran plays a little, as does Pakistan, Saudi Arabia, Yemen. Look into Iraq, Saddam," the president said testily, and left us. Lisa Gordon Haggerty stared after him with her mouth hanging open. All right, Clarke. So he says, quote, "Having been attacked by Al Qaeda, for us to now go bombing Iraq in response would be like our invading Mexico after the Japanese attacked us at Pearl Harbor." All right, so December 7th, you wake up in the morning, yawn, go out and get a newspaper, in Hawaii, and you see these Japanese planes come in, they bomb Pearl Harbor, and what the hell should we do? I don't know. I get it. Let's go invade Mexico. All right. All right, so this is 10 days after 9/11, and this is a testimony of General Wesley Clark, who is a 4-star general, Supreme Commander of NATO, a fairly, intelligent guy here, visits the Pentagon and runs across an officer from the Joint Staff, a general formerly in General Wesley Clark's staff. So he was an underling of General Clark. The general says, "I want you to know we're going to attack Iraq." Clark, "Why?" General, "We don't know." Clark, "Did they tie Saddam to 9/11? General, "No." Then 6 weeks later, he goes back to the Pentagon and sees the same general. Clark, "We still going to attack Iraq?" General, "Oh, sir, it's worse than that." He pulls out a piece of paper. I just got this memo from the Secretary of Defense office. We're going to attack and destroy the governments of 7 countries in 5 years. Right? Iraq, Libya, Syria, Sudan, Somalia, Lebanon, Iran. Then there's another quote here about Wolfowitz told Clark he wants to take down the old Soviet client states. Right? Well, what are the Soviet client states? These are Soviet client states. I don't know about Lebanon. All right. Okay. So, I'm going to play. I guess I should have had this up.
Is thinking.
What happened in 9/11 is we didn't have a strategy, we didn't have bipartisan agreement, we didn't have American understanding of it, and we had instead
it's not very loud, so I'm gonna pull this up on. Let's see here. All right, we'll pull this up on.
Is thinking.
What happened in 9/11 is we didn't have a strategy, we didn't have bipartisan agreement, we didn't have American understanding of it, and we had instead a policy coup in this country. A coup. A policy coup. Some hard-nosed people took over the direction of American policy, and they never bothered to inform the rest of us. I went through the Pentagon 10 days after 9/11. I couldn't stay away from Mother Army. I went back there to see Don Rumsfeld. I'd worked for him as a White House fellow in the 1970s. All this is in the book.
Hold on, let me see where I want to go here. Okay, time 1:12. All right, so.
Pentagon, and an officer from the Joint Staff called me into his office and said, I want you to know, he said, sir, we're going to attack Iraq. And I said, why? He said, we don't know. He said, I said, well, did they tie Saddam to 9/11? He said, no. He said, but I guess they don't know what to do about terrorism, and so they think, but they can attack states, and they want to look strong, and so I guess they think if they take down a state, it will intimidate the terrorists. And it's like that old saying, he said, if the only tool you have is a hammer, then every problem has to be a nail. Well, I walked out of there pretty upset, and then we attacked Afghanistan. I was pretty happy about that. We should have. And then I came back to the Pentagon about 6 weeks later. I saw the same officer. I said, why haven't we attacked Iraq? We still going to attack Iraq? He said, oh, sir. He says, it's worse than that. He said, he pulled up a piece of paper off his desk. He said, I just got this memo from the Secretary of Defense's office that says we're going to attack and destroy the governments in 7 countries in 5 years. We're going to start with Iraq, and then we're going to move to Syria, Lebanon, Libya, Somalia, Sudan, and Iran. I said, 7 countries in 5 years. I said, is that a classified memo? He said, yes, sir. I said, well, don't show it to me. He was about to show it to me. He said, because I don't want to talk about it. And I sat on this information for a long time, for about 6 or 8 months. I was so stunned by this, I couldn't begin to talk about it. And I couldn't believe it would really be true, but that's actually what happened. These people took control of the policy in the United States. And I realized then, it came back to me. A 1991 meeting I had with Paul Wolfowitz. In 2001 he was Deputy Secretary of Defense, but in 1991 he was the Undersecretary of Defense for Policy. It's the number 3 position in the Pentagon. And I had gone to see him when I was a 1-star general. I was commanding the National Training Center. I had met him one time. He said, if you ever get to Washington, come look me up. They always say that. Well, I was there in Washington. It was a Friday afternoon. I visited Colin Powell. He'd given me 5 minutes of his precious time, sitting me on the way, and I was bored in the Pentagon. And I thought, I'll just go, who can I see? I think I'll see Wolfowitz. So I called him up there. He was available. Scooter Libby came to the door. I met Scooter for the first time, and he brought me in. And I said, to Paul, I said, and this is 1991, I said, Mr. Secretary, you must be pretty happy with the performance of the troops in Desert Storm. And he said, well, yeah, he said, but not really. He said, because the truth is we should have gotten rid of Saddam Hussein, and we didn't. And this was just after the Shia uprising in March of 91, which we had provoked, and then we kept our troops on the sidelines and didn't intervene. And he said, but one thing we did learn, he said, we learned that we can use our military in the region, in the Middle East, and the Soviets won't stop us. He said, and we've got about 5 or 10 years to clean up those old Soviet client regimes. Syria, Iran, Iraq, before the next great superpower comes on to challenge us. And it was like, you know, I'm coming out of the Mojave Desert. I've been training troops. I haven't been thinking geostrategy for some time. And suddenly a guy just sort of shoves this nugget at you. Well, you remember it. It was a pretty stunning thing. I mean, the purpose of the military is to start wars and change governments. It's not to sort of deter conflict. We're going to invade countries, and I you know, my mind was spinning.
Okay, so I imagine John Clark is a very intelligent person, but he doesn't know U.S. history, right? This is a standard thing done by the U.S. government, overthrowing countries, overthrowing governments, right? It's done over and over. It's nothing, it shouldn't be shocking to anyone. All right. Okay, so yeah, we're going to overthrow a bunch of governments here. 70 governments in 5 years. All right, so so 2002, methods used in the fear campaign, right? In this fear blitz here. One, you time a bait and switch fear campaign. You have ticking time bombs. Time is running out. Time is short, right? Time is not on our side. Before you know it, Saddam's going to have a nuclear weapon. Before you know it, he's going to be able to, do major damage to our cities and our populations. And then you have time release of false manufactured intelligence reports. This is an old technique. I've seen this in the Vietnam War, Gulf of Tonkin buildup. It's part of the 30-day plan, actually. D-17, I believe it was 17. You time a release of a modified Jordan report. Time arrest of terror cells. You see how all this stuff is absolutely timed, right? It's no accident. This is man-made. A barrage of fear speeches by Bush, and you have fear-generating sound bites. There's going to be a mushroom cloud for a smoking gun, right? It's going to be too late. A nuclear weapon's going to have gone off already, right? So the fear campaign was kicked off by Cheney before the anniversary of 9/11. On 8/26, he says, Saddam Hussein would fairly soon have nuclear weapons. Really? Okay. Fear-mongering. Iraq had no nuclear weapons program. Cheney vehement on necessity of military action against Iraq. Right? And then 2 days later, they had 2 timed arrests. Terror cell in Detroit arrested, charged. Right? There's terrorists living all among us still, right? 9/11, they're still here, right? Builds fear. And then another terrorist cell in Seattle, across the country, is arrested same day. Terrorists living among us, right? Then on September 3rd, New York Times report that there's a first wave of TV documentaries reliving 9/11. 30 more to follow. There were 36 TV shows in all, documentaries, reactivating all the fear and terror of 9/11. All the images, all the horror that day. And then, so it's being reactivated. And I mean, just the number 9/11 sticks with you. 1 year anniversary, it's still pretty poignant. So Rumsfeld calls for a preemptive attack on 9/4. This becomes a new buzz term, preemptive, right? Hit them before they hit us. Well, hit us with what? 9/7, New York Times report. Washington officials said today that the administration was following a meticulously planned strategy to persuade the public, the Congress, and the allies of the need to confront the threat of Saddam Hussein. In the end, it'll be difficult for someone to vote against it. the Iraq War resolution. The administration official said. So the Bush administration openly admitted they plan to do this. All right, they're saying they got a plan here. All right. 9/8, the Bush administration announces Iraq has been stepping up its relentless quest for nuclear weapons. Right? What Cheney said here: nuclear weapons, mushroom cloud for a smoking gun, uh, fear mongering. There was no truth to this. And the Bush administration were not the victims of bad intelligence. They cooked up bad intelligence from yellow cake, out of Africa. Was it Niger? They made up, right? I mean, Joe Wilson was sent to investigate. He comes back and says there's no truth to the story, all right? And then the Bush administration takes it and lies and says, "Oh, right, we now know that they had yellow cake sold to Iraq, aluminum tubes." The scientists were saying those were not tubes of the proper weight, size, quality for centrifugal tubes. They're standard Iraqi rocket bodies, tubes for rocket bodies, low tech, and then mobile biological labs. No truth to this. And then they also, were spouting off exact quantities, like they knew exactly how much. Like their intelligence was so good, they knew exactly how much of all this stuff. The CIA is spitting this out. Bush is spitting this out. It's lies. It creates a false perception that it is real, right? When you cite exact quantities when none of it existed. All right, so chemical, biological weapons, which were totally fabricated, these numbers. Bush in the 1990s, Iraq had an advanced nuclear weapons development program. That's not true. You had inspections going from 91 to 98 and no nuclear weapons program. All right. On 9/8, the Bush administration scare tactics. The first sign of a smoking gun may be a mushroom cloud. Right? There was no nuclear weapons program. And from what I read, they had focus groups testing phrases like this. Which one would have the biggest impact on the population? And they found this one was effective, so they used this. The first sign of a smoking gun would be, you know what this is like? This is like an ad agency, right? You're trying to determine what's going to be the most effective ad campaign, right? Which is going to manipulate the population the most. The Bush administration used focus groups to determine the effectiveness of this term. 9/8 again, the Bush administration says Saddam Hussein's efforts to build an arsenal of immensely destructive weapons leaves the U.S. little choice but to act against Iraq. Now keep in mind, the U.S. undermined and sabotaged the efforts to try to find WMD in order to maintain the false perception within the public that Iraq and Saddam had WMD and were lying and concealing. Right? So there was no chemical, biological, nuclear program. And Bush admits this in this video.
Imagine what the world would be like with him in power. The idea is to try to help change the Middle East. Now look, part of the reason we went into Iraq was the main reason we went into Iraq at the time was we thought he had weapons of mass destruction. It turns out he didn't, but he had the capacity to make weapons of mass destruction. But I also talked...
That's bullshit. He didn't have the capacity, right? He had the capacity to reconstitute his right. That's a lie, right? He didn't have the capacity to make the stuff again. He had the scientists. He had the They had the know-how, right? They didn't have the facilities. He had to rebuild them. Now, I mean, he could have, right? But he didn't. He didn't have the weapons. He didn't have the facilities.
It just doesn't hold water as far as I'm concerned.
The terrorists attacked us and killed 3,000 of our citizens.
All right. So he's saying, yeah, he's trying to justify our invasion of Iraq because Al Qaeda attacked us on 9/11. That's a load of crap. All right.
Before we started the freedom agenda in the Middle
Oh,
East,
freedom agenda,
they were...
chaos, and
What did Iraq have to do with what?
The attack on the World Trade Center.
Nothing. Except for it's part of...
this bullshit. Don't give us bullshit. He said Iraq had nothing to do with it. He's going to try to blow some bullshit here. All right, so he just admitted that Iraq had nothing to do with 9/11. All right. All right, so he admitted Iraq had no WMD, and he admitted Iraq had nothing to do with 9/11. All right. So this speech that he made was like, when was this? I think it was around September 2004, I believe. No. It was about September 2003. All right. Now, on September 9th, Cheney warned grimly that time is not on our side. Ticking time bomb. Tick, tick, tick. All right. Right. Fear. Right. President Bush, top national security officials, said nearly in unison today that Saddam Hussein's efforts to build an arsenal of immensely destructive weapons left the United States little choice but to act against Iraq. Fear-mongering. Time is running out. All right. Immensely destructive weapons. All right. Non-existent. All right. You see, this is absolute proof. They pumped up the fear of weapons of mass destruction. 9/9. Time release of a false intelligence report. Every time you see blue here, that's a fake intelligence report. Right? Classic method of manipulating the public. Whenever they pass you an intelligence report, it's not intended to inform you. It's intended to manipulate you. Right? Always question that. Whenever they release a classified intelligence report, right, it's for their advantage. They're not trying to help you. All right. So Iraq could be only months away from producing nuclear weapons if they can lay their hands on the necessary enriched uranium and plutonium. Right? Just months away. Ticking time bomb. Right? Time is not on their side. Time is running out. Right? It's going to be too late. It only matters months. We got to do something now. And keep in mind, all this is not timed with any real threat. It's timed with perception manufacture, timed with flipping this onto Iraq, bait and switch flip, right? Al Qaeda attack onto Iraq, timed with 9/11. All right, so 9/11. Bush makes a speech commemorating 9/11, right? And by this time, 36 TV documentaries on 9/11 have aired at this point, reactivating all the fear and terror and horror of 9/11. And then on 9/11, well, gosh be darned, what a coincidence. They arrest one of the key planners of the 9/11 attack. This Ramzi bin whatever. A high-ranking Al-Qaeda leader and 9/11 plotter is captured on the anniversary of 9/11. There's terrorists still out there on the loose, fear-mongering, right? They're still out there. They can hit us again. 9/12, right? This is the key shift. Bush makes his big speech before the entire General Assembly of the United Nations. Saddam is now the real terror threat. Tie Saddam to 9/11 with a bait and switch. Fear-mongering, right? Quote, he says, and if an emboldened regime were to supply these weapons to terrorist allies, then the attacks of September 11th would be a prelude to far greater horrors. Right? Well, what terrorist is going to give it to? Right? The radical jihadists who would first use it against him? You think he'd be that stupid to put it in the hands of these guys? All right? Who want to set up their caliphate within the Middle East by taking down a Middle East nation like Iraq? Right? He's hunting them down and executing these guys. New York Times, quote, President Bush has formally changed the face of America's primary enemy from Osama bin Laden, whereabouts unknown, to Saddam Hussein. All the fear generated from bin Laden's 9/11 attack is now flipped onto Saddam Hussein in Iraq, and it worked, right? People didn't bat an eye. Right? The American public did not bat. It makes you wonder, right? How people miss this. It's a bait and switch. Now, 9/12, Bush administration time release of another false intelligence report on the magnitude of the threat of Saddam's WMD. Building up, right? So this gives real numbers, right? Real quantities, which they're making up, but it makes it seem like they know, they have good intelligence. They know exactly how much, right? So it makes it appear real, but it's all perceptions. All right, fear mongering. 9/13, Bush said the United States would insist on short deadlines to take action against Iraq. We're talking days and weeks, not months and years, he said. Fear mongering. And it's also preconditioning the American public to anticipate and accept military action against Iraq. This is an old technique. If you're going to hit people eventually with a military action, you got to first prepare them, and you precondition them to expect it. That's classic technique, right? To diffuse and prevent, to undercut any shock or horror and subsequent opposition, right? You facilitate acceptance by preconditioning them. Same day, FBI announces the arrest of Buffalo 6, and I'm thinking they're arrested on the same day they arrested this guy, right? They just announced it 2 days later, all right? So terrorists all around us. They Buffalo 6, they arrested these two together, right? These two, I'm saying, they're probably arrested together, same day, time, same day. Terrorists all among us, right? This is when it's announced. And, quote, the investigation into the 5 Buffalo area men, well, it turns out to be 6, arrested on terrorism. Charges began before September 11 terrorist attacks. Government sources say. So, investigation. And so they knew these guys. It turns out they knew these guys. The 6 were reported to the FBI on June of 2001. Right? That's 4 months prior to 9/11. All right. All right. So all right. Okay. So they sat on these guys for basically 15, 16 months before they arrested them. Over a year after the 9/11 attacks, they finally arrest these guys on 9/11. Right? How convenient. Right? You sit on them for 15 or 16 months. And then you said, oh, let's arrest him on 9/11. What do you think? Right? And then the governor of New York, what's his name? Pataki, right? The guy's shameful, right? He comes out and says, hey, see? This is proof the terrorist threat is real. I'm thinking, how simple are you? Can't you see that this is timed? They're jacking up this fear. Right? And I'm thinking, this is the quality we have of our national leaders. A state leader, governor of a state of, a major state in the United States. 9/16, Saddam Hussein agrees to unconditional return of weapons inspectors in Iraq. Now, why would you think he's doing that? He's like, hey, come on back. Why? Because he senses the heat. He senses an attack coming down. He's trying to stall, prevent it. So he's like, weapons inspectors, come on back in. All right? Now, I remember the media saying, oh, they kicked them out. Iraq never kicked out the weapons inspectors. The UN pulled them out back in December of 1998. Right? All right. Now, so he wants them back in because, he'd rather have inspections than an attack. But what does the Bush administration say? Right? U.S. rejects Iraq's arms inspection offer, stating, so the Bush administration reject that. You would think they'd go for it. Okay, all right, let's go through your country. Stating inspections threaten to split support for military action. What does that mean? They want military action no matter what, right? Bush doesn't want weapons inspection, prefers attacking Iraq. All right, so Scott Ritter, what do I say? A real purpose of inspections. All right, one of the things he said about real purpose of inspections, he said the CIA obstructed, sabotaged, undermined inspections, and the real purpose of the inspections were to manufacture the false perception that Iraq had WMD and was hiding and concealing them. All right, and that way, according to Scott Ritter, it would justify maintaining the sanctions, which would strangle the Iraq economy, creating so much suffering and hardship that they would overthrow Saddam. Well, it did succeed in creating suffering and hardship with well over 500,000 Iraqi kids dying. And, I'm saying a lot more than that. You just look at the elderly population. They're vulnerable. And you look at anyone who's got chronic diseases, right? They're vulnerable, right? Without medications, without treatment, they're dropping, right? They're dying too, all right? So it's not just the kids. And that led to bin Laden's attack on 9/11. That was a key reason for it. All right, so Bush is like, no, we don't want inspections. We want to attack. All right. 19, the Bush administration appeared well on its way to bulldozing Congress into a swift passage of a resolution. So now the resolution is coming into play, right? Hey, this is going to keep us safe, right? They're pumping up the resolution now, endorsing a possible military campaign against Iraq, right? Preparing expectations, irrespective of whether or whatever emerges from the United Nations Security Council. That comes from a London newspaper. 919. Rumsfeld said today that the dots are all connected. Bullshit. Right? With evidence on Iraq WD. This was total lies. Right? See how they're trying to make it appear absolutely they had good intelligence here? And that the U.S. must stop Iraq before that country had a, quote, chance to use weapons of mass destruction or put them in the hands of terrorists. Right? It just is... Was Saddam Hussein crazy enough to use weapons of mass destruction against the United States when he had them during the first Gulf War? No. He knew all hell's going to come down on him. He didn't use it then, right? To do that would be suicidal. He knows he's a dead man if he does that. Use WMD, killing mass amounts of Americans, right? He knows he's dead. He's invaded, he's captured, he's on trial, he's executed. He's dead, right? Now, was Saddam Hussein suicidal? How did they find him? They found him disheveled, long beard, hiding in a hole in the ground, all right? He's a coward. He's trying to save his life. Is that suicidal? Hell no. He's self-preserving. All right. Put them in the hands of terrorists? Well, what terrorists? Right? Oh, yeah. He's got ties with Hezbollah. What's their goal? Anti-America or anti-Israel? Right? Oh, he's going to give it to, the radical fundamentalist jihadists. Right? What's their main goal? Caliphate. Take down an Arab nation to set up their state. Right? Oh, I'm going to give them weapons of mass destruction. All right? I mean, just think how stupid that is. As soon as that weapon's out of your hand, who knows how they're going to use it? Who knows how they're going to screw it up? And whether or not they use it on you, right? Their use of it is going to come back upon you. There's going to be intel tracing it back, right? They're going to know that Saddam. How many people have this capacity? Right? They're going to know. It's coming back to Saddam, and he's a dead man. All right. 920. Bush today asked for a congressional resolution to authorize military force against Iraq. All right, now they're pushing that resolution. It was a whirlwind day on multiple fronts as Mr. Bush made his hardest push yet for swift action on Iraq. Secretary Paul and Defense Secretary Rumsfeld took the administration case to Capitol Hill. Oh, God, I hate all those guys. Bush pushed for a vote before October 15. Okay, why October 15th? Because that's the congressional recess, right? All right, they leave. You can't vote on this, right, until after the election. After the election, there's no political pressure to vote for this, right? You got to push this before the vote, before the recess. Now you got political pressure getting people to vote for this. You see that angle? All right. So 920, another false intelligence report. Time release of a white paper. Bush administration publishes its rationale for preemptive attack. Right, we got to attack them before they attack us. They're going to attack us. Trust us. With their dumb weapons of mass destruction, which is real. Trust us. Right. 920. Secretary of State Powell implores Congress today to pass swiftly the strongest Iraq resolution, war resolution. Right? It's a war resolution. Don't say it's a resolution to authorize the use of military force, because what is a war? Use of military force? It is carte blanche. It's a blank check for war. Right? The fact that our politicians don't understand this after 3 times. Well, 2 times before this, right? This is the 3rd time. Right? It's just maddening. I mean, this is our nation's leaders. How simple and clueless can they be? Right? Well, history repeats itself because no one damn learns from history. Arguing that anything less would undermine efforts to build international support for ousting Saddam Hussein. Right? That's regime change. So on the 21st, leaked to the press that the Pentagon has completed and delivered. This is another leak. Plans, right? This is not intelligence, but this is a leak delivered to the president. A highly detailed set of military options for attacking Iraq. Right? So what is that? That's preconditioning the public to accept. That's planning in mind the expectation for war, thereby facilitating passive acceptance of the war. Right? Classic method, I told you. Right? You want to take military action, you can't just whack people with it out of the blue. You got to prepare them to expect it. Right? Then they're not shocked. Then it facilitates acceptance. And there's techniques. I taught a 4-day swing technique that's been used quite often in our history. All right, so 925. British Prime Minister Tony Blair. I hate this guy. Right, another friggin' liar. Asserted today that the Iraq government of President Saddam Hussein could launch chemical or biological warheads within 45 minutes. This is such a load of shit. Right? No WMD. How do they do that? Right? Right? Ballistic missiles. They don't have a ballistic missile that can reach beyond, I don't know what. They, like 200 miles or something like that. Right? They got some Scuds maybe. They eliminated all their Scuds over 150 kilometers. That's a little over 100 miles. They got nothing over, a little over 100 miles. What's 100 miles away from Iraq? Maybe they can hit Israel. I don't know. Is that about 100 miles? At the closest, right? Closest point to closest point. Maybe, right? Right. That's not much. They can hit Jordan. They can hit Syria. They can hit Iran. Maybe Turkey. Yeah, Turkey. They can hit Turkey. That's about it, right? This creates a perception. This is a lunatic perception that they can hit Great Britain, and it's passed on. They can hit United States. With what? No WMD, no ballistic missiles, right? They don't have ballistic missiles beyond 100 miles. This is crazy bullshit. You see how extraordinary lies that these guys are passing? The report said Iraq had stored and was continuing to produce chemical and biological agents capable of causing mass casualties, including mustard gas, sarin, anthrax, botulinum toxin. You see, they name specific things, right? It makes it appear real when it's all made up. All right? Bunch of liars. Right? Fear-mongering. But in the public mind, it's real. It's so damn easy to manipulate the masses. Right? They're constantly being manipulated. on a daily basis. Bush makes fear-mongering speech. Quote, the danger to our country is grave. The danger to our country is growing. Ticking time bomb right there. The Iraq regime possesses biological and chemical weapons. My ass. The Iraqi regime is building the facilities necessary to make more biological and chemical weapons. My ass. They had none of that. And according to the British government, the Iraq regime could launch a biological and chemical attack in as little as 45 minutes after the order were given. Bullshit. None of it exists. No 45 minutes. And, you know, the British were just as much manufacturing bullshit, false intelligence information. Right? They're making this crap up. Right? They had no ballistic missiles with a range over 100 miles. Right? How are they going to attack Britain? How are they going to attack the United States? I mean, 100 miles is you know, it's a ballistic missile, but that's essentially a tactical weapon. Right? And according to, no. Quote, there are Al-Qaeda terrorists inside Iraq. The regime seeks a nuclear bomb and with fissile material could build one within a year. Oh, bullshit. Right? Okay, Al-Qaeda in Iraq. So there were no Al-Qaeda in Iraq, but there was a group that was loosely related to Al-Qaeda. They're the right-wing fundamentalists, jihadists, right? The hardcore guys, right? And they weren't Al-Qaeda, but they're tied with Al-Qaeda, and it was about 200 of them, but they're hiding up here in northern Kurdish Iraq. Why were they hiding up here? Because this is off limits to Saddam Hussein. This is how they can stay out of their grasp. And the 2006 intelligence report, right here, the Senate 2006 intelligence report said that Saddam Hussein was hunting down the religious jihadist extremists because they were a threat to his government, and he was executing them. Right? So these guys were hiding out from Saddam, and the report said that Saddam was trying to infiltrate their group up here and try to get intelligence on them. All right. So that was Al-Qaeda in Iraq. You know, the irony is, or that was it for anything close to Al-Qaeda in Iraq. These guys hiding up in U.S. UN protected Kurdish Iraq. This is no-fly zone territory. No Iraq can go up here. No Iraq government. Right? They're protected. Right? So that's where the Al-Qaeda related group, not Al-Qaeda, but Al-Qaeda, about 200, not a big group. They're hiding up there. What happens after we invade? Al-Qaeda blossoms to about 2,000. It grows by a factor of 10. Right? Because of our invasion. So it's ironic. Right? There's barely any, little to no Al-Qaeda in Iraq, and they're being hunted down by Saddam. Then they become a more significant group after we invade. That was just great. Okay. What Al-Qaeda terrorists? There was only a small group loosely related to Al-Qaeda hiding out from Saddam in U.S. protected Kurdish-controlled northern Iraq, off limits to Saddam, who was hunting them down in an effort to eliminate them because they posed a threat to him, and he was trying to infiltrate them to get intelligence on them. All right, this is fear-mongering. Okay, so that's no-fly zone there. On the 27th, Bush press release, another speech, quote, our determination to confront the urgent threat to America. The dangers we face will only worsen from month to month and from year to year. Ticking time bomb bullshit, right? Clock is ticking. We got to do something, right? Time is running out. To ignore these threats is to encourage them, all right? And when they have fully materialized, it may be too late. Ticking time bomb again. To protect ourselves and our friends and our allies. By then, the Iraqi dictator would have the means to terrorize and dominate the region. Each passing day, ticking time bomb, could be the one on which the Iraqi regime gives anthrax or VX nerve gas or someday a nuclear weapon to a terrorist ally. Bullshit. All right. Let's give this to Al-Qaeda. Let's give this to Zakari. Yeah. Who's Zakari gonna use it first against? Iraq. All right. just like ISIS, right? He was a leader of ISIS. Al Qaeda in Iraq morphed into ISIS. Okay. Uh, so 927 plan to use fear to control the election. This is Karl Rove, right? Look at this guy, a fairly unattractive dude, right? I mean, he's got chins for like 3 or 4 people here, right? He can get some plastic surgery and you know get some I don't know lip implants, something like that. All right. Okay. Congressional Majority Leader Gephardt said, quote, the president assured Americans then that politics would not play a part in deciding issues of life and death. That's using the election to manipulate the vote on the resolution. Which is why when Karl Rove told the Republican Party meeting last January that talk of war and terror themes could play to the GOP's advantage in the 2002 elections, yeah. Or last June when a computer disk containing a presentation by Mr. Rove revealed a White House political strategy to focus on the war as a way to maintain a positive issue environment, right? Basically, it's saying pushing the war and terror talk will win the November election for the Republican Party, right? They'll be portrayed as being a tougher on terror and more capable of fighting a war, right? Yeah, bullshit. Bush administration so screwed up this war, it's not funny. 927, politicizing the resolution vote. Republicans made voting for the resolution an issue of patriotism. Yeah, see? Right? Right? You vote against us, you're unpatriotic. Right? You might as well burn the flag. You hate Uncle Sam. You don't care about Americans. 928, the Bush administration demands weapons inspections at all of Saddam's presidential palaces. Later it was leaked that the CIA had plans to use palace inspections for attempts to assassinate Saddam. I mean, this was true, right? Scott Ritter talked about that, how they actually planted structural engineers on these teams to inspect Saddam's presidential palaces to get intel on structure and location for possible bombing raids on the palaces to kill Saddam, right? And I read in there, and I can't find it. I'd have to go back and read the whole damn book again. How those teams were also to plant surveillance devices, whatever. I don't know what, microphones or whatever, maybe cameras. I don't know. Bugs. Okay. So what am I talking about here? So now, okay, yeah. So all this, I want to say this. You can take this with a grain of salt, right? This later it was leaked because I got this from a German paper, and a long time ago. I can't remember the details now, and I lost all my stuff in this. It was one of the main German papers though, like Der Spiegel or something like that, right? It was one of the main, right? They said that it was leaked, leading up to the war. That now, I mean, so you could take this with a grain of salt because I don't have the documentation, right? This is coming from my memory, right? But it is true that they did this. So this is not inconceivable. The CIA did play dirty games with the inspections, and they put structural engineers on these inspections, right, to get assassination intel using these inspections, right? So now they're pushing. We got to inspect the president's palaces. Remember back here, Saddam's like, oh crap, right? They're gonna try to attack me. So he's, hey, weapons inspectors, come back. How does the Bush administration respond to that? Oh, great, we'll do that. Hell no, we're not going to send in any inspectors, right? We want to attack you. That's going to split support for attack upon you. So we reject this. Oh, but pressure is you got to go this route first. So they took a new angle, right? This is a new angle they're taking, right? We're gonna demand that we inspect the presidential palaces, right? That's going to make Saddam want to reject this, right? Which he does. They initially reject it. Let's see here. Iraq rejects inspection of presidential palaces. However, they would reverse this on 10/12. So that's, what is that, about 2 weeks later, they accepted the inspections. But at first, the move here by Bush is to demand inspection of the presidential palaces, knowing that Saddam would be worried about his security, and he rejected. All right, right. And this will look bad if he rejects the inspections. They would say, "See, he's hiding." Right. But then he backtracks and accepts it. So this is putting him in a corner. This is a threat to Saddam's life, right? Secretary of Defense Rumsfeld said today that the American intelligence had. You see what games they're playing? This is a chess move. This is a maneuver, right? Right. American intelligence has bulletproof evidence. Oh, bulletproof my ass. That's like Cheney saying, "Oh, dots are all connected. Dots are all connected my ass. Bulletproof evidence my ass." Right? Links between Al Qaeda and the government of President Saddam Hussein in Iraq. Right? Bullshit leaks. Connection. In September 2003, 6 months after we invaded, Bush publicly admitted there was no links between Al Qaeda and Iraq. Right? 2006 intelligence report stated Saddam was hunting down these Al Qaeda religious extremists. Why? Because they threatened him. Right? Why in the world would he give them a WMD if he had it? First of all, he didn't have it. But why in the world, if he did have it, would he give it to them, who has a high risk of using it against him? Probably a lot higher than using it against the U.S. Their first goal is to use it to establish their caliphate. Bush time release of a white paper, October 1st, stating the reasons why congressional resolution was absolutely necessary. Oh, bullshit. As soon as you get that, as soon as you get authorization for the president to use military force, you got a war. Right? That is old. Right? This better not, our Congress better not fall for this again. I swear. Right? New York Times, Bush administration provides a buffet of reasons for resolution. WMD primary, the Al Qaeda links, and Iraq providing training to Al Qaeda and use of chemical weapons were all false. This is bullshit, right? So, one person under torture, guy named Al-Libi, what's coming up here? Oh, it's right next here. So, okay, that day. National Security Advisor Rice and Secretary of Defense Rumsfeld. Oh, yeah, you can trust these people, right? Both stated that there was evidence that Iraq trained Al Qaeda in the use of chemical weapons, right? CIA. So the CIA rejected this, right? This was one person's statement. Guy's name was Al-Libi. Oh, right there, Al-Libi, right here, Al-Libi, right? He was a guy who was captured and he was renditioned to Egypt. He's in an Egyptian prison, being tortured, and under torture, he says, I mean, when you're tortured, right, you're out of your mind. What do? You're gonna tell them anything you think is gonna get them to stop the torture. Tell them what they want to hear. So he says, "Hey, yeah, Iraq was training Al Qaeda in WMD." Well, one, there's no Al Qaeda in Iraq. Two, Iraq has no WMD. So why would, right? Why would Iraq train them on WMD? There's no Al Qaeda in Iraq. There's no ties to Al Qaeda, right? There's no WMD. Why would they train them with WMD if they don't have WMD to give them, right? And then why would they give it to these radical jihadists who would first use it against them? You think the media is asking these questions? Hell no. The media back then was only hyping up the fear. That's why I hate the U.S. media. They disgust me. The U.S. media makes me so sick. They're such liars. They don't help. They're not helping the public. They're manipulating the public. All they try to do is act like, oh, we're honest, right? My ass. Trust the U.S. media? Make me sick. Okay. All right. Okay, so then on 10-4, all right, just before the vote. The vote was on 10-10, all right. John Lynn Walker, American who joined Taliban. He's convicted, sentenced to 20 years. Right, terrorist law. Same day, Richard Reed, infamous shoe bomber, right, pleads guilty. Terrorists all among us. Fear. Right, there are terrorists all out there. Reactivating that fear. Right. Then on 10-5, the CIA timed the release of a false intelligence report. Iraq is making WMD. Right. Another timed release of another false intelligence report. Iraq is making WMD. And then Bush makes a speech, called Saddam Hussein a cold-blooded liar, cold-blooded killer who lies and deceives. Wait a minute, right? Saddam Hussein, no doubt about it, is a cold-blooded killer, right? He's a scumbag. He is evil. Oh, but we supported him for many years. We supported him with material to make WMD, with all the damn biological toxins you can imagine, page after page of them, during the Reagan administration, right? Who lies and deceives. Oh, yeah, you know he does, right? But you know what? Who also lies and deceives? This is a total lie and deception here. Bush administration. Who's a bigger cold-blooded killer starting a whole war, right? So who is the real cold-blooded killer? And who lies and deceives? Well, they both are, right? I'm saying Bush administration is even bigger. And creates a bloody war that increases terrorism, destabilizes the Middle East, and exacerbates the Sunni-Shia conflict, right? A lot of bad things came off of this war, right? Then on 10-5, gee, same terrorist cell in Portland arrested. Wow, right? What a coincidence. Then on the same day, 10-5, terrorist cell in Detroit arrested. Terrorists living among us, all around us. Fear mongering. Bush fear mongering. Saddam says, Saddam Hussein has a horrible history of striking without warning. Remember, I told you that he warned Kuwait 3 times, right? And then Tariq Aziz warned another time, right? Hey, you better stop overproducing. We're going to invade your butts, right? Right? Striking without warning, my ass. We gave him the green light after he warned 3 times, after he put an army on the border. Oh, okay, go ahead and do it. We gave him 3 green lights. You see how things work here, right? 10-6, FBI time release of intelligence reports. They're compiling an open. Oh, this is not a quote. Is it a quote? No, it's not a quote. But this is right on. They're compiling an open book of the lives of hundreds of mostly young, mostly Muslim men in the United States, in the belief that Al Qaeda trained terrorists remain in this country, awaiting instructions to attack. That could be a quote. I don't think I wrote that, or maybe I paraphrased it. Maybe that's why I took the quotes away. All right, terrorists among us, another one, right? Even more so, right? See, that's the big impact. All these arrests here, terrorists living among us, timed right here with 9/11, timed right before the vote. All this stuff, time release. This is the grand finale. There's hundreds of these guys. We got intelligence that there's hundreds of these guys and these purple guys, right? 10-7, New York Times reports 9/11 fear, scare tactics are working. They're undermining Democrats' election hopes. Karl Rove's political strategy is working, right? They're saying all this fear mongering is going to get the Democrats kicked out. Democrats went into this election controlling both the House and the Senate. Right. Now, 10-7, this is Bush's big national televised speech to the nation where he makes his big push for a congressional resolution to authorize use of military force against Iraq. It's super fear-mongering. Quote, the time for denying, deceiving, and delaying has come to an end. Saddam must disarm himself or for the sake of peace. Right? Nah, bullshit. Peace persona bullshit. We will lead a coalition to disarm him. Right? Remember the CIA goal was to maintain the perception that Saddam was lying, right? So maintain the false perception that Saddam was lying and concealing. Um, Bush said, Saddam saying, quote, could attack the United States or its allies on any given day with chemical, biological weapons. Oh, bullshit. Right? This is such a load of shit. Um, okay. 10-8. New York Times headline, election fever turns dovish Democrats into hawks. Right? So Bush plan is working. Karl Rove's plan is working. Right? Twist the arms of Democrats to get that vote. And Republicans, if there's any, I bet you Republicans are all voting along party lines on this, right? But Democrats may have voted against. But, you got guys in turn. You get Joe Biden in turn. You get Hillary Clinton in turn. All right? Obama was, to his credit, he's one of the few guys who had some backbone to vote against it. All right. All right. 10-9. The Daily Telegraph, it's a wire service. Poll results. Bush speech effective right here. President George W. Bush has swung American popular opinion firmly behind him by linking the threat from Al Qaeda to 9/11. Oh, that's a bait and switch. The phony, fake, right? Transfer of fear from the Al Qaeda attack onto Iraq, right? Public opinion. What is public opinion? A bunch of dimwits, I swear. Right? 10-10. The resolution authorizing President Bush to use military force passes 77% to 23 in Congress or in the Senate and 296 to 133 in the House. The resolution is used as a legal basis for the Iraq invasion war. Given the toxic fear environment created by the Bush administration, to vote against the resolution was political suicide. All right. Then Iraq accepts WMD inspections in the presidential palaces. All right. So this is when they accept them. They're trying to defuse this. Right. It's not going to happen. Right now, at this point on 10-10, they got a war. This is a hot little ticket to war. And you know what? Remember I told you Halliburton contracts? Right? Halliburton contracts were being signed right after this. Right? Okay. Shortly after this, Halliburton contracts are being signed. All right. Getting ready for the war. 10-15, congressional recess until November 5th election. That's a full 90 days for final critical campaign. Bush push for election. Then there's a general election. Democrats get hammered. Republicans take control of both the House and the Senate from the Democrats. So Bush-Rove plan works. All right. Then on 10/27, WD inspectors return to Iraq. It's not going to matter. They're going to war. Right. On January 31st, I'm going to skip off this, I think. This is something where Frank Koza email ordering surveillance operations to collect dirt on UN Security Council members, all but USA and UK, right, for blackmail to leverage vote for war and a second UN resolution, which would create the perception of international support for war. Right? They're trying to manufacture security count. This is blackmail. That's what this is. This effort will probably peak. This is a quote from Koza's email. Quote, this effort will probably peak, at least for this specific focus, in the middle of next week, following the Secretary of State presentation to UN Security Council. That was Powell's bullshit, lying, false intelligence speech on WMD. All right, that was a final big Colin Powell bullshit line speech, right? Here, look at we got all this real intelligence, yeah, all these biological labs, right? They show some cartoon pictures, right? Yeah, it's all bullshit, right? That was his big speech, timed, right? And this is to be timed with it. Blackmail. Get these guys to vote for the war. All right. And then in September 23rd, 2004, the Dolphin Report. So a year and a half after we invade, the Dolphin Report says, oh, okay, the problem of discerning WMD in Iraq is highly highlighted by the pre-war misapprehensions of weapons which were not there. All right, that's what he says. Distant technical analysis mistakenly identified evidence and drew incorrect conclusions. Oh, bullshit. This was no mistake. They intentionally manufactured, right? That's what Scott Ritter testified. They intentionally distorted his data. They lied about his data. They manufactured a false belief, right? The CIA was lying about their data to manufacture the belief that Saddam had WMD and he was hiding them. And then there's another intelligence review report. So this Rob Silberman intelligence review report was investigated. Well, how did our intelligence get it so bad, right? The assessment that Iraq had WMD and WMD capabilities, quote, were all wrong, right? All of it were wrong. The Iraq Survey Group, IRG, found no evidence that Iraq had tried to reconstitute its capability to produce nuclear weapons. See, that's where Bush lied in that speech on television. After 1991, no evidence of biological stockpiles or of mobile biological labs. That's where Colin Powell's friggin' lie was. Weapons production facilities, and no substantial chemical warfare stockpiles or credible indication that Baghdad had resumed production of chemical weapons after 1991. All right. Two summary reports on Iraq after we inspected, and there's no WMD. So let's do a quick review. Was this random? Was this pattern all random or a definite pattern? Was this an accident or was it clearly planned out and timed? All right. You have the 9/11 attacks. Day one, you're planning to use it to attack Al Qaeda. This is evidence of planning motive. You're gonna do this. We're gonna pin this on Iraq. We're gonna use this against Iraq. Bush is pushing it. Defense Department Rumsfeld is pushing it, right? And then, now we got plans against Iraq, and now in this day, General Clark says we got plans to take down the governments of 7 nations, not just Iraq, 7 nations, right? And then you start having the big fear campaign right around 9/11, right? All right. Bullshit. This is accident, right? Plus, they bragged about the plan. Oh, we got a meticulously planned strategy right here. Right before they do it, they brag about it, right? Then they pump out, we need this resolution to keep us safe. Among all this fear, right? Fear, panic, fear. It's going to be crazy nuclear holocaust, right? Far worse than 9/11 you can imagine, right? 45 minutes all it's going to take for us to hit us, right? All right. Then he put the resolution vote here, right before the congressional recess, which, right, using the congressional resolution as leverage. So let's take a look at timing here, right? Here's September 11th, 2002, fear-mongering terrorists living among us. Look at the timing of this, right? 8/28, 5 Arab Al-Qaeda arrested in Detroit. 8/28, same day, terror cell in Seattle arrested. 9/11, 9/11 planner arrested, right? Ramzi bin whatever. And then I'm guessing it's 9/11, but it's either 9/11 or 9/12 because they announced it on 9/13, right? I'm guessing it's not the same day. Buffalo 6 arrested, right? Gee, what a coincidence. They knew these guys for a year and a half, almost a year and a half, before they arrest them. They just sat on them, right? What a coincidence. You time it on 9/11, the arrest. Then the second wave, 10-4, John Lynn Walker. 10-4, Richard Reed. 10-5, Portland terror cell arrested. 10-5, another Detroit Al-Qaeda cell arrested. 10-6, FBI leaks a report that they're building a book on hundreds of Al-Qaeda trained Muslims living in the U.S. amongst us, ready to go on a moment's notice, ready to attack. Right? Scary stuff. You see how they timed all this shit? You look at this. You think that this is accidental? They could have arrested these guys anywhere over a year and a half. Right? Bullshit. This is time. This is man-made stuff. Look at that. That's man-made. And then 10-10. Oh, you get to vote for the resolution. What a coincidence. Right? All right. Now let's take a look at Bush's speeches. Well, he commemorates the 9/11, right? Then there's another speech on 9/12. Another speech on 9/14, 9/21, 9/26, 9/27, 9/28, 10/5, 10/7 is his big one. What comes right after that? 3 days later? That's good timing. Let it stew for 3 days, right? That's ideal time frame, right? Let people talk about this, build it up. Let the news media get a hold of this, right? The news media will hype this up, right? Exaggerate it. And then you get the vote, 10-10. What a coincidence, right? You think this is all accidental? This is a big blitz campaign of speeches. Time release of intelligence reports, right? They can release this stuff anytime during the year. And from my experience, right, my research, this is classic method. They don't release intelligence reports, classified intelligence reports, unless they want to manipulate you. They're not trying to educate you, inform you. They're doing this to manipulate you. 9-9, 9-12, 9-20, 9-25, 10-1, 10-5, 10-6. Right? This is the CIA one. We know they got WMD. Right? 10-6, FBI. There's Al-Qaeda, hundreds of Al-Qaeda terrorists in USA. Right? 10-10. Oh, you get to vote for the resolution. Gee, what timing. You think this stuff isn't planned? You think this is not timed? This is clear human pattern. All this. All concentrated. Right? Now, if you add that, all the statements jacking up fear, all the times these lying administration officials, Cheney, Rumsfeld, Condoleezza Rice, Powell, they go before the UN, they go before Meet the Press or whatever, national television, passing their lies, pumping up fear, passing their focus group tested hype phrases. Oh, we don't want to have a mushroom cloud as a smoking gun, right? Now here's Richard Clark's some more statements on Richard Clark, right? So here he's talking about who, I forget who he's talking to here. So it's a quote by Clark. He is recounting a conversation in the White House. I am unaware of any Iraqi-sponsored terrorism directed at the United States, Paul, since 1993. And I think FBI and CIA concur in that judgment. Right, John? I pointed at CIA Deputy Director John McLaughlin, who was obviously not eager to get in the middle of a debate between the White House and the Pentagon, but nonetheless replied, yes, that is right, Dick. We have no evidence of any active Iraqi terrorist threat against the United States. How about that? All right. Clark, it is not hard to understand why, after repeatedly hearing President Bush's remarks, like that 70% of the American people believe that Saddam Hussein had attacked the Pentagon and the World Trade Center. I suspect that many of the heroic U.S. troops who risked their lives fighting in Iraq thought because of misleading statements from the White House that they were avenging the 3,000 dead from September 11th. What a horrible thing it was to give such a false impression to our people and our troops. Only in September 2003, that's the Bush's speech, only after occupying Iraq, only after Vice President Cheney had stretched credulity on Meet the Press, did the president clearly state that there were no evidence that Iraq was involved in the September 11th attacks. Clark, I doubt that anyone ever had a chance to make the case to him that attacking Iraq would actually make America less secure and strengthen the broader radical Islamic terrorist movement. And it did. So the U.S. invasion, for no reason, of an oil-rich Middle East country, Iraq, right, Muslim nation, went far, far, boosting worldwide support for radical jihadism, including expansion into USA homegrown terrorists, right? Including expansion of terrorist attacks in other countries who participated in the Iraq invasion, like Great Britain and Spain, right? France started getting whacked because they're doing their own stuff in like Mali and Algeria or Libya and so forth. Nothing America could have done would have provided Al Qaeda and its new generation of clone groups a better recruitment device than our unprovoked invasion of an oil-rich Arab country. Nothing else could have so well negated all our other positive acts and so closed Muslim eyes and ears to our subsequent calls for reform in their region. It was as if Osama bin Laden, hidden in some high mountain redoubt, were engaging in long-range mind control of George Bush, chanting, "Invade Iraq, you must invade Iraq." So this is what Clark's saying, right? Right? Nothing could have helped Al-Qaeda better, right? Created much more backing and support and recruitment for Al-Qaeda than U.S. invasion of Iraq. Clark, as an analyst, analysis by our Army War College Strategic Studies Institute, written by Jeffrey Record, argues the Iraq War was a strategic error of the first magnitude. Where was I here? Instead of energetically pursuing the priority of creating an ideological counterweight for Al-Qaeda, we invaded Iraq and gave Al-Qaeda exactly the propaganda fuel it needed. That's exactly true. The invasion, when it came in 2003, lost us many friends. Polling data had already suggested that the U.S. was not trusted or liked by majorities in Islamic countries. After the invasion, those numbers hit all-time highs, not only in Muslim countries, but around the world. There are a lot of European countries that are like, man, U.S. is fighting another damn bad war. U.S. is, I mean, you know, if you're anyone but an American, you think of the United States as a warmonger country, right? America's like, oh, USA is peace-loving. We only do good in the world. That's what the media tells us. That's what U.S. history tells us. U.S. history is such lying crap. In Muslim countries, the U.S. invasion of Iraq increased support for Al-Qaeda and radical anti-Americanism. Elsewhere, we were now seen as super bully more than a superpower, not just for what we did, but for the way we did it, disdaining international mechanisms that we would later need. When we invaded Iraq in 2003, the Gallup poll, 72% of Americans were in favor of invasion of Iraq war, right? 72% of Americans, right? You know, I'm saying you got 28% others. I'm saying most of those guys are like no war for any reason. They're like pacifists, right? Right. So this is saying like almost all, you know, reasonable Americans are like were manipulated by this. So here's a summary. The Bush administration openly said they had a meticulously planned strategy to manipulate the U.S. public, the Congress, and U.S. allies to take action against Saddam, and which would make it difficult for someone to vote against it, the Iraq War resolution. So they had a meticulously planned strategy, right? This was no accident. This was a strategy, timed. All this. This is no accident. This is all timed. This is all planned, right? All of these. Wait a minute, where am I here? All right. Republican Party strategist Karl Rove is on record saying focus must be maintained on the talk of war and terror to win November elections. They manipulated the U.S. public and Congress with a bait and switch, timed with the 1 year anniversary of 9/11 to get an association, right, and transfer all that fear over to Iraq. You know, association transfer meeting is a method that is so simple, and the media uses that all the time to lie. That is a common method used by the media to lie. The media is such liars, they make me sick. In which they exploited all the fear and horror of 9/11 attacks and then deceptively flipped that onto Iraq. Fear mongering always works. They then conducted an elaborate fear campaign, a blitz of fear signals, time before the war resolution vote, which was timed right before the congressional recess, which is the last 3 weeks for congressmen and senators to go back home and campaign for re-election. That's all time. This made voting for the Iraq war resolution difficult to vote against. Remember they said this right here. Because that would be political suicide in the extreme atmosphere of fear that they concocted like a witch's brew. Right? They cooked up this foul atmosphere. All of the following was timed with the 1 year anniversary of 9/11. Congressional resolution vote and or the November election. A non-stop barrage of fear-mongering. WMD, non-stop, every day. 8 FBI arrests or legal actions. 9 speeches or press releases by Bush. Many more press releases by Bush administration officials. Every day they're in the press saying some crap, lie. 7 intelligence report timed release. Bullshit lying intelligence reports. It all worked perfectly. Congress voted resounding for the Iraq resolution war. With the war resolution, the Bush administration had its hot little ticket to war, and it was a legal basis for the war. 72% of the American public supported this war at that time. Right? They're all suckers. Republicans stole the 2002 election, taking control of both House and Senate from Democrats. Other nations that joined the U.S. in the invasion became targets of terrorist attacks. For the list of specific methods, I have another diagram here. This is all the ways money's made off of the war. I'm not going to get into this yet. Now we have an exponentially bigger terrorist threat in terms of size, viciousness, worldwide, homegrown. ISIS is on the way out. I wrote a strategy for that. The neocon plan to overthrow 7 governments in 5 years, created chaos in Iraq, created chaos throughout the Middle East, created hotbeds for terrorists like Libya, like Syria, like Iraq. Far greater terrorist problem than we have today, right? All right. I'm going to stop there. Let's see what so this here is a diagram which I diagram out all the Bush methods of manipulating perceptions. So I put the methods into categories, and I list all the types of lies, timing, bait and switch, sound bites, WMD soundbite, WMD lies associated with 9/11, right? All the types of lies and all the things they did to manipulate this, get the war resolution vote. Right? I'm not going to go in that detail here. And these are types of lies here, types of sound bites. All right. All right. So I'm going to stop there. All right. So that's just a review of how the Bush administration manipulated the U.S. public and Congress into war. You think it can't be done? Ha! It's easier than you think.